Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. My name is Chris Berry, and I'm going to be your host for today. Joining us, we have Andrea Lepcio. Andrea, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, enjoying my Monday morning, and excited to go ahead and chat about some coaching programs. So, before we get into the details of your business and everything like that, could you just go ahead and give everyone either listening or watching an overview of what you coach people on?
Sure. So I'm Andrea Lepcio, and you can probably tell from the gray hair that I am a senior, and I'm actually 67 years old. And so I really coach people who are, I say 40 plus, because I know some younger people who start to feel their age. So at any point that you're feeling your age, I've also met somebody for the first time at 95. So I teach, I train the whole range of kind of 40 on right on up, people who are kind of on their own, just noticing that their body is not quite working the way it used to work, and noticing some of the changes that the aging process does bring to the body, and then wanting to see what they can combat. And the genius thing about the human body is that, yes, it will age, but by the same token, if you make it do exercises and make it strength train and do cardio, the human body responds, and you make muscle and you make bone, and you build stamina and you build energy. And so I feel as good today as I did at 35. I don't think I would say I feel as good today as I did at 25, because I don't even remember what 25 felt like. But I can say I feel pretty good, even though clearly I'm fairly far along in the aging process. And the trick is that independence comes from power, right? So if we don't maintain our muscles and keep moving, we literally will lose our independence. We won't be able to stand up from a chair. We won't be able to get in and out of bed by ourselves. And that loss is pretty scary to me, right? So I do this because I fully intend to be doing two things in my 80s: climbing mountains and making love. So that's
That is
why I do what I do.
That is awesome. Well, that's the crazy part because I feel for most people, they don't realize how bad the situation is or how far along they are in the negative direction until it's too late. And then it's just like either irreversible or they get to the point to where it's just so unbearable that they can't take it anymore. So obviously it's amazing that you're helping people get the awareness, first of all, that like, look, here's what's happening if you don't go ahead and start taking care of it, number one, and here's how you can go ahead and start taking care of it. So before we kind of get into the details of exactly how you help people and everything, what was your journey? Like what made you go ahead and
Yeah.
be in this great shape at 67 and go along and start also coaching other people on that?
Yeah. Well, I would describe myself. I mean, I was always a fairly physical person. I was a dancer when I was much younger, but still, you get into your 40s and your 50s and you're really serious about your career. So you're so work focused that, days can go by and you went, oops, I didn't get to the gym. You know what I mean? And you don't even notice because you're so focused on work. So I really had um, turned myself into what I call a sedentary hunchback, right? Because
Mm.
I was always over the computer, hunched over, and unaware of my posture, and so lots of aches and pains, and not sleeping well, and all that kind of stuff. And for me too, because I'm female, there was a perimenopausal to menopausal thing also going on that was complicating my body. But so what happened was I kind of got through all of that phase, and then I was 59, and so I'm 59 years old. So what's going to happen next? 60, soixante. That's a pretty scary number. So I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. Maybe how I've been living isn't going to be sustainable. I should do something different. So I actually went the route of getting certified to be a personal trainer, because I thought I could help myself and hopefully help other people too. And that ended up just kind of really opening a door. So that was 2017. So that kind of opened a door, and right away I certified in Tai Chi. Then I went to yoga school. I did my first 200 hours and I loved that. So I kept going and I did 500 yoga hours. And I've gotten certified in mat Pilates and TRX and a bunch of other things along the way. because I just fell in love with anatomy, and I fell in love with really learning and understanding the body. And I found it also helpful, for me. Like, I mean, I finally learned how to stand up straight at 62. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? And now I'm a writer, so I still work on the computer, but now I work like this as opposed to working like this. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I have two questions specifically about kind of obviously the stuff that you do, because there's kind of two people that you essentially just touched upon of within your older self. You have the, business professionals that they're really focused on their career and doing that, and that's what they love. And the hard part is that given how much attention they have there, they don't maybe put as much attention on their health, and they don't understand the long-term negative effects that can come from it. So the first question I had is for this individual, right? That is the business professional and everything. What is one of the biggest aha moments or one of the biggest mindset shifts you have of like, here's what I was doing wrong as that person that was very business focused, and here's how I changed it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one thing that's true, and I know, and I work with clients today that have really packed schedules. They don't have a lot of time in their schedule. And so you kind of have to you have to honor the person and just figure out, well, when could this person possibly exercise, right? So I was just talking to a client the other day who has like a 12-hour workday. And I said, okay, is it conceivable that you could do 10 or 15 minutes when you get up?
Hmm.
And then is it conceivable that you could do 10 or 15 minutes when you're sort of moving towards dinner time? Right. And the answer was, yes, I probably could do that. Right. And that's actually, that can be enough, right? If you could every single day solidly get in those 30 minutes divided into 2 chunks, if you can just lock that into your schedule and make that the habit, you're going to feel so much better. And it's amazing how much it contributes to your work life, because you feel better, you're moving better, you're sleeping better, you're in a better mood, and the brain responds to all of that by focusing better. So you're actually working out makes you more productive in your mainline, the thing you want to do 12 hours in the day.
I like that. So finding a way to go ahead and just fit it in regardless of your busy schedule. And it doesn't need to be this massive thing. Because I think for a lot of busy professionals, it's like it's this massive hurdle of like, oh, I don't have the time and it's not as important. But it sounds like it's not really the case. You can make the time. It's just because I could tell
Yeah.
you these business professionals are probably taking 10 to 15-minute chunks and wasting it in random little things here and there, possibly throughout the day too.
Completely. How long are they scrolling on their phone, for example? Right.
Yeah.
There's so much time of the day that we waste. And honestly, you shouldn't be sitting all day. So I also say to people, kind of just like sit for an hour, get up and do something. Maybe it's a stretch, or maybe you get up and you just do a bunch of knee lifts, right? Like get up and do something and then sit back down and go back to work, right? So you can sort of thread it through your whole day as well. Which can be useful, because that sitting all day is not good for you. Yeah.
Yep. Good point. Okay. And then the second one
But
that
you don't have to but depending on where you live, it's like the notion of going to the gym, and I have to drive to the gym, right? So this kind of like, I don't have time for this 90-minute event, right? So I give you things to do at home, body weight, or maybe you buy a resistance band, you could buy some dumbbells, you can have very little and you can get a lot done. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have them with me right now, but I went ahead. I do make it important to go ahead and go to the gym and everything like that, but I definitely have a tendency to lean more towards kind of like that 12-hour work day of just like, oh, well, it's difficult sometimes to find the time. So I don't have them right here because I'm actually in California now instead of Utah, but I have these little dumbbells and just 5 pounds. And I literally sometimes like I'll be on meetings with someone and people, it's not the first time that I meet people. It's like my business partner or something like that. They just go like, oh, do, or something like that. And it's crazy. Like you feel it, like it makes a difference. It really does. So anyway, that's a little personal anecdote. The second question I had, and then I do want to get back obviously into, your coaching business and everything. It was just more out of curiosity for myself, but then also, people that, you help on it. I think it would be helpful for them to also better understand too. That second piece of,
Yeah.
let's say, women that are, entering into menopause or, just at different stages of life, their body starts changing and stuff like that. What are some of the biggest ahas that you had for, women like this specifically yourself and people you work
Yeah.
with?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I mean, one thing has nothing to do with fitness, and just is that you know, women's bodies are not well researched. Men's bodies are much better researched than women's bodies. And so when I was going through perimenopause, it was sort of in what I call the dark ages, when there was a period of time where they were saying hormone replacement therapy is bad because it will give you cancer. You're going to get ovarian cancer or breast cancer if you take hormone replacement. And that lasted for a good 10 or 15 years, which was my era of being in perimenopause. Now, fortunately, they've learned that hormone replacement is really helpful and really healthy and does not have any higher risks of cancers than the environment or any other behavior. So they were just completely wrong in my era, and now they have figured that out. So for many women, hormone replacement therapy is a really smart thing to do. So you're just kind of helping that process of your body changing. You're giving it a little help along the way. So that's one thing. But the fact of the matter is that it estrogen does more than just make babies, right? Estrogen does a lot in our bodies. It does a lot in our brains. And so if as we're going through those transitions, exercise, both cardiovascular and strength training, is very helpful. As you lose your estrogen, bones become more risky. So again, strength training is really important for bone health, not just muscular health, but strengthening those muscles pull on those bones, and it tells the bone to make more bone, which is what you want it to do. So that's really important. And my sleep was terrible during perimenopause. It got better once I was actually in menopause. So again, working out can help with you sleeping better. Meditation and calming the nervous system is very helpful during this period of time. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, now obviously we kind of know a little bit more of what you help people with, your backstory. We got a couple of little personal tips on based on the person. Now, as we're kind of diving into your coaching business, I'm sure that, there are parts that are absolutely amazing and there's parts that's not the best. What are some of the favorite parts of your coaching business, and what are some of the most challenging parts of your coaching business?
Well, my favorite part is just to get to know people and help people. And every single client is so unique, what their circumstances are, what they're dealing with, what they love to do. I work with people who are still athletes. They're still playing tennis or golf. They're still athletically active. And I work with other people that their athleticism is long in the past. I work with people with different diseases like Parkinson's, many Parkinson's patients, as well as I was working with a man in his early 80s who was a polio survivor. So he had a certain amount of paralysis that he was dealing with. So, I mean, kind of everybody's got their own story, and I just love the variety, and I love just the richness of the human experience, and seeing where they are when they walk in the door, and then just working with them gently and supportively to see where they can grow and change to. I've got a guy I've been working with for a few years, and he's got a rotator cuff thing, and but he's still pretty lively and active and plays golf and does yard work and all that kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden, after 2 or 3 years, this year, he started to play tennis again. And that was like huge. He's like 78 years old. And he decided to pick up the tennis racket again. And he doesn't have the serve of yesterday, right? But he's figuring out what's the serve of today, and he's really loving the process. So I love to see that when somebody actually adds an activity to what they're doing. That is such a positive sign that it's working. Yeah.
Absolutely. So favorite part, obviously seeing the journeys, the transformations and everything like that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, what would you say is one of the most challenging parts of your business?
The most challenging is I have had people who sign up for things and then cannot get themselves to do it, right? So they signed up, they get a program, they've got me on the call, the other end of a text, 24 hours a day, and yet they're doing nothing. And so there's certain people that they get so far as to even pay money and say, yes, I want to do this, and then they cannot show up for themselves and they don't do anything. So
And
that's
for
really
these,
frustrating.
yeah, I'm sure, that's one of the most frustrating things about being a coach is, you try to pour yourself so much and you want it so much for them, but you can only lead the horse to the water. You can't force the horse to drink.
Not
So
force the drink.
exactly. So for these people that, because this isn't an uncommon thing amongst coaches of, as I said, you put a lot into them, it's just not reciprocating. What are things that you do in order to encourage people to actually take the actions and keep them accountable to increase the probability that they can actually do it and get the outcome?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm trying to really build it more firmly into the onboarding process so that we reach agreements together, what I'm going to do and what they're going to do. So that they know they're at least they know at the beginning that they've agreed to do the workouts, for example. So I'm trying to build that in a little more strongly at the beginning of the process. And then just trying to problem solve with them kind of based on their personality and their tendencies and their behaviors, what's going to work best for you, right? I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying like there's this person has a positive motivation to exercise and also a negative one. So the positive one is getting ready for a trip in 3 months where she wants to be able to hike around and be really active. And the negative one is that both of her parents have dementia. So she recognizes that exercise is a counter. It helps. If you exercise enough, maybe you won't get dementia. Maybe it's not a guarantee. So I think I try to work that out with each client is kind of what's your motive and what's the motive that's going to get you up and moving, right? Because there could be motives that are more effective than other motives to get you up and moving. So I try to problem solve with them and kind of like, again, what time of the day is the best time of day for you to plan on it? I ask people to make a date with themselves just as if they were going to have coffee with their favoriteest person in the world. So you would keep the date with the favoriteest person in the world. You need to keep the date with yourself in the same manner. So if you say, I'm going to work out at 6 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whenever it is, then it's a date with yourself. It's in the calendar. Nobody, if you're on Calendly, nobody else can book on that time. That's your time to do this. And then hopefully you get in the habit of showing up for yourself. Yeah. And I think what we both know from our coaching experience is that it really is the early days of building that habit, because pretty much once they start doing it, they're likely to keep doing it. The hardest part is starting from zero to nothing, to something, right? That's the first jump is the hardest part. But once they start working out, probably they'll keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult part is obviously the early stages, like you were just mentioning. So let's obviously you've mentioned the challenges. How do we keep people more accountable? Now, obviously, in order to get people, we have to get them first into the business. So with your coaching practice, your coaching business and everything, what are the ways that you are generating leads, generating clients for your business?
Yeah. So I'm all over social media and I have been for a while. And even in my local community, I can be in the grocery store and somebody will say, oh, hi, I know you from Facebook, right? That they've seen my post on Facebook. So it's really funny when that happens, but it happens fairly often. So I'm kind of all over social media so that people can see me and see how I'm managing my body and see what I'm doing. And hopefully that'll be inspirational for them to say, I want some of that. So that's one way I'm generating leads. Certainly friends and family and referrals. So if somebody's worked with me, they might tell some other friends that they've had success with me so that more people will call me up or reach out to me. And I certainly do, I will do the, messaging people and, if somebody's sort of talking about something where they're talking about a fitness thing, I might message them and get into a conversation with them about their fitness, and that might lead to something. So yeah, kind of all the usual ways of kind of human communication. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds like And that's the most important thing, is staying in front of people, right? Staying in front of your ideal client and everything like that. And it sounds like you're doing that on social media. Now, let's say that you get in communication with someone, they'll say, hey, I'm interested in possibly learning more about working with you. Then you get on a call with them or whatever that looks like. What is your sales process? And how do you kind of take them from I'm interested into, yes, like, let's move forward. I'm a paying client of yours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the sales call is really an opportunity for me to start that relationship and get to know them. And so I almost treat the sales call as I would an intake, so that I really can come to understand what are their problems, what are they dealing with, what's not going well for them right now, what do they hope to achieve, what results are they looking to get, and sort of digging in a little bit deeper to sort of say, so that we really identify, is there kind of a hidden problem underneath? Like maybe there's 2 or 3 things you say first, but is there some hidden problem that we should understand? So I try to just have an open conversation that takes however much time it takes to really understand what's going on with them. And then once I can really get the full picture of what's going on with them, then I can say, I believe I could help you, or occasionally, I don't think I can help you, but I'd like to make a suggestion that you do X or Y or Z, right? Sometimes with a certain injury, for example, they should do physical therapy first, for example. So that would be an example like that. But then if I've understood the problem completely, then I would start to say, I believe that I can help you. And I may talk a little bit about my own experience of kind of how I helped myself, and then get into sort of more of the details of really making sure it's clear kind of what the wins are we're aiming for, like what the results are that we're aiming for, and then describing how I'm going to get them there, which is a little bit more the details of, I've got an app that you can have on your phone or your device, and there's going to be one-on-one calls, and there's a community you can join, and all the details of what they kind of the features of the program, but making first clear the desired outcomes that they would achieve if they signed on.
Yeah, well, it was essentially, as you said, it's giving them the glimpse of everything, right? It's not just like, oh, hey, here's what I do, pay me. And no, it's like, hold on, like let's walk through this. Here's how we're gonna work together. Here's what the process of what it can be, and here's what it's gonna be. Is that something that would make sense to you? It sounds like it's more of the fact, like giving them the understanding and vision, and also giving them a little taste of it too, so they're like, yes, I want to work with you.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it sounds like it is. So that's awesome. Well, I know that we've had many conversations before, and we could probably continue to talk for hours about all these different things. For me, asking about,
I think we could.
but we definitely could, from this, or whether it be about the physical health stuff, or whether it be the coaching business. So I'll go ahead. I'll keep it.
We didn't even talk about food. We didn't talk about food once.
I know exactly. I know that's a whole nother can of worms too. So I'm going to keep it short for the audience. If the audience wants to go ahead and hear more, you maybe hear a second round of it, go ahead and drop that down in the comments below.
Oh.
In short, though, as we begin to go ahead and wrap up, for anybody that is interested in, they're like, wow, Andrea, I really like her process and just kind of her thoughts and everything like that. Or maybe they're like, hey, I actually am exactly your ideal client. I want to work with you. What is the best way for these people to go ahead and get in communication with you?
Let me just do an email, which I think is pretty easy. So it's Andrea, Andrea, at mighty.fit. The word mighty, like mighty.fit. And that actually is my website too. Mighty.fit is my website, but just Andrea at mighty.fit. And that would be a great way to start a conversation.
Okay, awesome. Well, Andrea, it has been great as always. Thanks for being a guest on the podcast, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you for having me. All right.
Of course, absolutely. So everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast as much as I did. For me, I so much value in everything, but the two main things that I do want to kind of highlight in everything that I know I took away from it was, number one, just you could see the passion inside of Andrea's eyes and the way she describes it and everything. She's just so vibrant, which, first of all, for 67 years old, amazing. But then the second of all, regardless of age, it's something that's so beautiful. And on top of that as well, it's so inspiring. When you're talking to someone, that they're passionate, they're really wanting to go ahead and do this. it makes it so much more. So that's one thing that she didn't necessarily explicitly state, but something that I really took away of how can I continue to show up more vibrant, more passion, everything that I do, because that really, it helps people in many different facets also become sold on, wow, like this is a person I want to work with. So that was number one. And then number two is this part at the very end, where she was explaining about how in my sales process, look, I'm seeking to do a couple of things. Number one, I'm seeking to give them a little taste so they understand what it is. And then number two, I also want to give them the understanding. I want to give them like the outcome, like here's what we're going to go ahead and do. Because ultimately in anything, knowledge is the foundation of which things are built upon, right? We can't take actions unless we know what actions we need to take. And ultimately, we can't go ahead and change. So not only is Andrea going ahead and giving a little taste, but she's also giving them the understanding of here's where we need to go. Here's the reasons why. And yes, of course, you can't give every single detail, but I like the fact how she's opening people's eyes because that's all that it really is. The fact and I don't mean to come back to age, but it is. You look at Andrea and you see how vibrant she is and everything and all the stuff that she's doing in the back end. And for a 67-year-old, I can tell you the average 67-year-old is not doing that. So that's something that's really cool for me to see as well, and something that was my second takeaway on that. So once again, I hope that you got as much value as I did out of this episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast. If you did like this episode, go ahead and drop a like. If you are not subscribed, make sure to go ahead and subscribe. And we will see you here on the next episode of the Coaching Uncovered podcast.